What's up guys, Chasing Lamely here with episode number 4 of our Beginner's Guide to Football Manager 2024, and today we're talking training, so join me in Manchester in just a second and let's talk through how you do training. So this right here is your training home screen. Should be fairly straightforward to understand, but if you're not understanding it, ask in the comments, I will explain things. So, always tells you who's in charge of your training. You can just use these buttons here to give it to your assistant manager, or literally just by using these drop downs, anyone you feel like on your coaching team. But for now, we're going to take control of the training just so we can show you what we're doing. You can just leave it on that, that's not a problem at all, but we'll do it ourselves for a second. So, first of all, you'll see up here your primary training tactic. That's the main tactic you've selected to use. You can also have, so this will be the one that's in slot number 1 and this is in slot number 2. If you want to switch between them, the fastest way that I've found of doing that, there's probably another way, let me know in the comments if you found it, is to drop that one down, set as primary training tactic, and it will focus all your training on that one. And if we go back to the training screen, you should see those two have swapped around. Right, in here you have your training schedule that you've got set up for this week, your happiness with training, your player performance in training, we'll go through that. Medical centre, so you can see who is at risk of injuries, currently 29 players. That's not unusual at this stage in pre-season, and it doesn't always go wrong. Training performance, of course, down here as well. You can also switch, as I said, with these things, but there's not a lot you can change it for, so we're kind of stuck because of my resolution with these options. I don't think we've got. I put training on there. It's just a little tiny version of that one. It's fine. And then your training session breakdown, which tells you what you've broken everything down into over the course of sessions. That's the basic intro. Obviously, you've got your calendar here, which you do need for training. Do pay attention for this. We'll go through it eventually. Schedules, you can literally put any of these schedules on. You can tweak them, you can save them, you can create a whole brand new one, whichever one you wish to do. You have your training units, your goalkeepers, your attacking, your defence. So when you play attack defence in a training session, those two will play each other. That's literally how that works. Fairly self-explanatory. Match prep in here. You can focus on a particular thing. I can't show you this one because I think it's already done it for the next game. But you can drop down here and you can see what you would like to prepare for in terms of your set piece, in terms of your transitional phase. You also always have an analysis of your opposition here. So we'll tell you, obviously they haven't played many games yet, so we haven't got anything here, but it will tell you what they're good at. So for example, in the last match they played in, you can see they have created, this is their kind of pass map. They like to play the ball around. At the back is what we're seeing from Stoke here. You can see that they didn't complete many passes, so they like to play around at the back. They're just not very good at it. You can see their last match XG, which they have had a 1.58 XG, which is pretty good, and yet somehow finished as in a draw with their opponents. The XG match story as well, largely the same thing. It just tells you they weren't dangerous in the first half, they come out slightly better in the second half, so you know they're a team that blooms a little bit late, and you can compare their pass map with the opposition, so this, or with their success rate. So this is their successful passes, this is the ones they were attempting. They're not making many good passes at the back. They're attempting them, they're just not making them work. And you can actually tweak this, so it will do analysis of all sorts of things, which I will go through at some stage when we go through the data hub. Mentoring, we went through mentoring, easy just to click there, but you can add players just by clicking here. Best to add players who can play in the same or similar positions, so defensive midfielders and defenders or wingbacks will go together. Attackers and attacking midfielders, central, they will go together quite nicely. It's fairly straightforward. We'll go through the individual training in a second. Rest and your coaches, where you can tell your coaches what you would like them to be doing, so you just tick a box if they've got something they're good at that you don't already have them doing, to boost these numbers down here, which is what you want to keep. You want to keep the star ratings as high as possible, and you want to keep the workload as light as possible, is essentially what you're going for. If any of those say heavy, add another coach, it's fine. Right, let's start at the beginning, shall we? So we'll go to the calendar, and we can see that we're currently doing the heavy pre-season, or at this stage actually in pre-season I would tend to be going all heavy for pre-season because I just want my players as fit as possible. Now, you can change individual training routines, so which week we're on here. So we're already on Wednesday, so we can't do anything about anything before this, but it's good enough to show you. You click on here and you can replace this slot with anything from here that takes your fancy, essentially. So these, they all have fairly self-explanatory things. It tells you what to do, etc. down there. One thing I like to do, you can, like I say, you can go as deep into this. My preference, let's go into August so we can see with a league game coming up here. So we've got the league game against Brentford coming up. So we'll start there. Brentford are a team I would expect us to beat. So in our pre-season training here, which I don't know why that's set to pre-season, it's not really a good pre-season one, I would be looking at not big match preparation or boot camp. These things are not necessary. But I'll be thinking about how we're going to play against them. They're a slightly worse, well, it should be a much worse team than us, but it's Manchester United. Who knows what will happen? So we can say, okay, we'll do a gegenpress for training style for that week, and you'll see it changes all of the things that we were doing in reference to the game. You can also go for a training style. So, for example, a team we should be beating, we might go for an attacking one. We'll work on making sure we put as many goals past them as possible. Whereas if we're playing Manchester City, we might pick a defensive one. That'll do you a nice kind of basic setup for your team. One thing I like to do when we're playing at home, this second or third one, usually the third one, because I'd like to give them a bit of rest in the middle. I try, just because it's really helpful, to have either a community outreach or a team bonding in there. Either works. You can see community outreach makes the team slightly more cohesive and their teamwork attributes get better. Team bonding works for teamwork attributes, cohesion, happiness, fatigue. Essentially, this one you take them out bowling, this one you take them around the local hospital, and they all become friends. And that's really important for your dynamics and for your performances and for all that stuff going forward. But one thing to pay attention to when you're doing your weekly training sessions is, if we go into the schedule here, we can look at Brentford, and we can probably at this stage get a sense of how Brentford play, because if we go on the tactics screen here, we can see Brentford prefer to be playing a 4-5-1 or a 4-3-3, depending how you prefer to refer to it. Lots of wingers. We can see here probably one of these guys is tucking into defensive midfield here, because the new match engine kind of just makes all teams do that. And I would suspect one of these guys is probably playing as an inside forward, if not both as an inverted winger. Best way to find out, on the right-hand side, you've got a right-footed player, so he's probably playing as a winger. You've got a right-footed player on the left wing, so he's probably playing as an inside forward or an inverted winger. And we can do the same with the fullbacks, to be quite honest. So we know he's probably playing as a left-sided defender. He's probably playing as a traditional right-sided defender, so chances are someone is tucking in there. And why is that knowledge important is the next question you're probably going to ask yourselves. If we jump back to this week's training scheme for that game, we know that they're going to be coming at us down the wing. Maybe in here what we want to do, just to be sure of that, rather than having a, say, attacking direct, because we're trying to play a gegenpress, we might look in here and go, okay, can we do a defending wide? Just because that way we can try something in there to make sure we've prepared to cover the wings. You might want to put I know we're not going to be attacking wings, so we'll probably take that off there. You might want to look at defending wise, or you will find match prep in here. Sometimes match tactics or match practice is the best way to go. I would honestly not do match practice the day before a game, because it tires your players out a lot. I would look at maybe doing a match tactics there, just so they can get familiar with the tactics and get themselves all together. Obviously, if you're playing a stronger team, more defensive stuff, pay attention to how they play. Try and make sure you're defending to cover that. Make sure you're attacking to focus on their weaknesses. So with the system they're playing, we're probably actually going to want to try attacking direct in there, because we're going to want to get the ball over the top of them very, very quickly. You'll work out what you need to be doing and how you need to be doing all that kind of stuff as you go. It's very it's very straightforward, very intuitive. The only reason that I personally will have my assistant manager taking care of that most of the time for the first team is purely because it's very time consuming to get it set up. But you can do it, and it's not a huge problem. The other thing to look at, units, obviously you can drag and drop as you need. So if you feel like Fred's more to be attacking than defending, you can chuck him in here. I say quite easily, it's not letting me do it, but in theory, you can chuck him in there. You can also add or remove a youth team player. So if you've got a youth team player you think looks like they might be really good, let's say we like Shea Lacey, chuck him in there. He can train with the first team and get used to how they do things as well. Very useful there. Match prep, obviously we've gone through as best we can at the moment. Individual training, this is quite an important screen. I like this at a glance look at it, because you can see who's training well, which is really important to see who's training well. That, as I think I said in a previous episode, if you've got to pick between two players who are as good as each other for the position, pick the one that's training best, because it will inspire the other one to train better, and they'll, try and outdo each other in training. They try and outdo each other on the pitch. Now, here we can also have a look at one thing that really annoys me. If there's a skin out there that does this, people who are new, let me know. There's not a thing on there that tells you what footed a player is. So, for example, as much as Anthony is a right winger who cuts inside, I would probably like to use the position role duty to teach him to play, say, as an attacking left winger, just so I can use him as a more traditional winger if I need to. That kind of thing is quite good. Also, have a look at the attributes and think about, does this player do something really well that maybe we're not using him for? So, for example, Lisandro Martinez, we're playing as a ball-playing defender, but realistically, he's probably also quite a good ball-winning midfielder, so we might look at that. You don't do it for every player, and it does hinder their developments just a little bit, but it's certainly worth going through all of these and just working out who does what best. If there's a position they could be playing in or should be playing in they're not trained for, train them for it. I mean, for example, Harry Maguire, his apparent second best position is as a right back, but if you take a look at all of his stats here, there's actually not much good reason you wouldn't want him training to be a, say, defending or a ball-winning midfielder there, purely because he can do it, it gives him a little bit of versatility and gives you that extra bit of depth in the squad, little things like that, just to pay attention to. You also have these additional focuses, so you can focus on making, say, Harry Maguire a better free kick taker or a corner taker, or if there's something you think he'd be really good at, like here we're using agility and balance because his agility and balance are terrible. You might want to make him improve his stamina or his work rate, or, hover over it, tells you what it improves. If there's a particular collection of stats you think he could do better, by all means pick that for your player, and that will solve that problem. Likewise, I talked about rest before. The important thing with the rest screen, I think, is this one. Obviously, it's nice to have an at-a-glance thing of where your physio thinks you should be doing things. I keep it like this: double, normal, half, and no pitch or gym work in sort of reverse order, because that tends to mean players are spending more time learning to be better players when they're fully fit, and more time recovering when they're not quite fully fit. Very simple, very straightforward stuff. But where training becomes really important is in the development centre. So you can obviously set up training schemes for your under-21s. When you're doing under-21s, I tend to think of what is it that I want my players to be doing, what I want them to be learning in that position. There's not a lot you can do because they tend to just follow your first team, but obviously do use the focus tabs there. We'll give that responsibility back to Travis Binion. But you can have a little bit more influence on the training for your under-18, but you certainly used to be able to. If they've got rid of that, I'm going to be very mad, because it was quite useful to drill into that, unless they've moved the training screen now. I don't think they have. Ask on a postcode where they've put that, or a postcard, not on a postcode. That'd be weird. That would go anywhere. Right. Again, I think it's just focusing on this. Now, if I find it, and I will try and find it because it's going to annoy me that it's not here, it was always important in previous FMs, and I think this year they're trying to make you focus more on the first team, which seems slightly frustrating. You can drill into them and have, say, a week where everyone's learning to defend, a week where everyone's learning stamina, a week where everyone's learning to attack, all this kind of stuff, so you can really make sure people are getting the full technical training rather than worrying too much about how they play the game. Essentially, make it instructive rather than tactical, because it really doesn't matter if you're under 18s or anything. I will edit it in if I find out where to play this, but it looks like they've got rid of it, which is really frustrating. That's really, really annoying. Hopefully that's a bug and not something I need to really frustrate myself over. Is it hiding in training calendar? So weird. They've got rid of it. Okay, so I've taught you to do first team anyway. Second team, reserve team, youth team, if you find it. Same thing, but focus. Don't worry about the tactical stuff. Don't worry about, having shadow play or match tactics in there. Don't worry about that. Just get them learning technical stuff. Get them good, and the rest will follow. Okay, I'm going to leave it there because I'm very confused by where that's gone. And there's not a lot more to tell you about training, so we'll actually have a reasonably short episode of the series. Who knew? Crazy stuff. Anyway, if this has been helpful for you, if you've got any questions, let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, all that good stuff, because I will obviously have gameplay coming out. In the next episode, talking of gameplay, I think we'll do an actual match prep. We'll go into a match. We'll talk you through how to manage a game. Maybe 2, depending on how the first one goes. I think there's stuff I should have been able to show you that I couldn't. We'll do that. But in the meantime, I've been Chasing Lemmy. Thank you very much for watching. I shall see you all very soon. And until next time, stay safe and have a good one.